Good evening, and welcome to Monday Night Politics, sponsored by the Dallas Examiner. I'm Christy Thomas, the coordinator for tonight's event. Tonight, I want to give the candidates and the audience a few housekeeping guidelines to ensure that the forum moves smoothly so we can provide a space that is safe and conducive to learn about each candidate. Candidates, you will have 2 minutes for your opening and closing statement, and 2 minutes to answer questions from the moderator and the audience. Our guest time speaker tonight is Yakora Gray. If you would raise your hand. She will provide a placard to inform you of your time and the time you have left to answer any questions. Candidates, this time should be spent talking about how you will implement your plan and goals for the seat if you are elected. Your time should not be spent talking about your opponent, their shortfalls, or issues. Please remain respectful throughout the forum and respect the space that has been donated to us for the purpose of educating our community on political candidates. Now to the audience. We are so thankful for your presence tonight. We ask that you formulate your question where it pertains to all candidates. You will be allowed 1 minute to ask your question, and only one question can be asked to allow time for others in the audience to ask questions. Again, please be respectful to prevent from any interruptions that could cause us to run out of time and not hear from each candidate listed to speak tonight. Any member of the audience should line up to my right, and you will be provided with a microphone so that everyone will hear your question being asked to each candidate. I want to thank you in advance for your cooperation and for your interest in being more informed about your candidates running for office and in your community. The Dallas Examiner has been presenting Monday Night Politics, Meet the Candidate, for 15 years prior to major elections. I want to stress that all candidates are invited through email invitation. The Dallas Examiner does not endorse candidates. We could not do this alone. Our sponsors are nonprofit organizations, too many to name, all Black sororities and fraternities, the NAACP chapters, the Links, and the African American Museum. Our moderator tonight is Eric Wilson. Eric served on the Dallas City Council and is very familiar with city government and the community. Lastly, please silence your phone, and video recording is prohibited for this event, as well as taking pictures. On behalf of Molly Belt and the Dallas Examiner, we would like to thank you again for your attendance tonight for Monday Night Politics, Meet the Candidate. Thank you.
All right, good evening. Decide to wake over here, wake this side up over here. Good evening. All right. My name is Eric with the K. Wilson. I will be your moderator for tonight. Before we begin, I want to let those individuals who are watching online, please submit your questions. We will have someone that will capture your question, and we will ask it of our candidates. So, before we begin, protocol, are there any elected officials who are not running? Any elected officials that are not running? Please raise your hand so we can acknowledge you. All right, thank you all for your support. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for your service. All right, now, candidates. All right, I was excited about this race. I was excited about tonight because I am in a room full of individuals who understands order, individuals who are used to giving directions, and the expectation is that those individuals in the room will follow those instructions. So we shouldn't have any problems from candidates tonight with not being able to follow instructions, but in the event that it happens, we're all human, I will give you a prompt nudge about that. Next, for our audience members who are asking questions, please be succinct in your question and make sure that your question is addressed to both candidates. If your question is addressed to one candidate, that's not allowed. Okay? So, just to help you out, audience members, with your questions, let's go ahead and get rid of the beginning, your soliloquy, your BC, before it happened, they were in office, all that. and get to your question, okay? So when you come up, you come to the side here, you have to give it a microphone, ask your question, okay? All hearts and minds clear?
Yes.
All right, love that, call and response, Baptist, all right. All right, so let's get started, because it is a bit warm in here, so which means that there should be some warm questions. So I know our candidates are already ready to answer your questions. So as they're coming up, please start thinking about the questions that you would like to ask. All right, so first we'll have our Fifth Court of Appeals, place 11 race. We have Justice Corey Carlisle and former Judge Kim Cooks. Please come to the stage. All right, so this is just two of you all, so we'll start out with a 2-minute introduction, introduce yourself, and then give your introduction. Midway, when we finish, when we get to the point of wrapping up, just be prepared that Justice Carlisle, you'll go first with your opening, which means that Judge Cooks, you will have the closing, okay? All right, we'll go back and forth.
Well, good evening, thank you for having me. I'm Justice Corey Carlisle, and I do currently sit on the Fifth Court of Appeals, place 11. Y'all elected me and 7 other colleagues of mine in 2018 to make this court majority Democrat overnight, and we are now almost completely Democrats on the court. I bring experience from my career as an appellate lawyer for the entire time. I did appeals my whole career before I joined the court. It's my expertise, it's the thing that I love doing the most. They call us the nerd judges. We read records, we read the law, we interpret the law, and I love doing that. My career was also based on service. For my entire career, I was either working for the government or I was working for folks who couldn't afford their own lawyers. Almost 90% of, over 90% of my cases. I represented people in criminal cases who, in trial and an appeal, both here and in the District of Columbia, where I lived for 9 years, while my wife got her career ahead. I represented those people who have a voice that I don't think was heard on our court, and it's certainly not heard in the courts very often. It's a voice sometimes of helplessness, sometimes of not sure where to turn, and it's a voice I can't get out of my head. And so I'm honored to continue to bring that perspective of a criminal defense lawyer, a person with an absolute expertise in criminal law, an expertise in the law of appeals that we do every day. The job that we do is vitally important. The job that we do decides cases about 95% of the time that will not go beyond the 5th District Court of Appeals in Dallas. We're a court that's broad both in its expertise, we're diverse in experience, we're diverse in the people who are on that court, and I look forward to 6 more years to continuing to represent all of the folks in the 5th District. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Judge Kim Cooks. I'm running for the 5th District Court of Appeals, place 11. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I started my legal career as a prosecutor in Houston. And then I went into private practice and I practiced criminal, family, juvenile, and family and civil law. So I have experience in all of the laws. I've also, for the 13 years, I was a trial attorney. And for the past 9 years, I've sat as a judge. 8 of those years was in family court and protective order court. And for the past year, I've sat in family, criminal, as well as civil cases throughout the counties. This particular court is the Court of Appeals. It sits below the Supreme Court of Texas. There's 14 of them in the state of Texas, and we are the 5th District Court of Appeals. So they hear appeals from civil cases as well as criminal cases. Now, when you have an appeal in the 5th District Court of Appeals, they have to hear the appeal. The Supreme Court doesn't have to take your appeal. So I am running because representation matters. Community representation matters. Inclusion matters. And that's very important. And someone who stays in the community matters. Not only coming out when it's election time and you have an opponent. I'm out in the community all the time because I represent the community, and that's important because the cases represent everybody. I'm asking for your support. Early voting is February 20th. Judge Kim Cooks for the 5th District Court of Appeals. Thank you.
All right, now that you've heard our introduction, I'd like to start off with a simple question for all of our candidates. What motivated you to run for this position?
What motivated me to run for this position is because there's no representation in the state of Texas of an African American who is in the community in the whole state of Texas. So that's what motivated me to run. And that's very important because the cases that have come before, especially the criminal cases, they're black and brown majority. And in the 5th District Court of Appeals particularly, the disposition rate is very slow. And if anybody knows the legal system, you know that criminal cases take a priority. They're not a priority in the 5th District Court of Appeals. That's why I'm running.
Well, I'm running because I love the work that I do. I've always loved it my entire career. I enjoy delving into the minutia of really sort of sometimes boring to folks who are outside of it disputes. I love writing. I love editing. I like reading. A lot of people who are in law don't enjoy this kind of work, but I do. Can tell you, having done criminal law my entire career, having sat in prisons across the country, alone in rooms with my clients, litigating hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of criminal appeals, I can assure you that my docket is not slow, particularly on criminal cases, which take me the least time to write. I'm pretty dang good at that. In fact, I've ghostwritten for several of my colleagues, in fact, to help on my own to help move our docket along. And so that's what I brought to this court. I will continue to do that, absolutely. It's fun to me.
All right. As you can see, we have our candidates have given you their opening statement and why they want to pursue this position. But let's get technical here because we're talking about legalese, and you all have thrown out some legal terms, and I'm sure there might be one or two persons in here that might be trying to figure out what do you mean by civil and criminal cases. So if you can give us an example in your best interpretation, what is this court, the type of cases it reserves, and what experiences do you have that make you most qualified for this?
Mm-hmm. Sure, criminal, a lot easier to explain. Assault, DWI, drugs, murder, robbery, kidnapping. Those are about 45% of our docket. Civil cases, we're talking about car wrecks. We're talking about personal injury cases. Somebody gets hurt on the job. We're talking about a contract dispute. We're talking about business fighting. We're talking about, we get into the family jurisdiction, divorce, child custody, things like that. We do probate. We do juvenile cases where juveniles are convicted, not the word they use, but I think it's the easiest way to understand it, of juveniles convicted of criminal offenses. The experience that I bring to the table on that not only is the over 1,300 cases that I've been a part of over the last 5 years, it's the career full of experience, some 13 years before that, of just dealing with a day in and day out of a criminal practice, a trial practice, an appeals practice. I handled fewer civil cases. I didn't start doing those until the very end of my private practice. But it's fascinating to get to deal with people's problems, and that's what we as lawyers, that's what we do.
Okay. He's pretty much covered what the civil and the criminal cases, what the definition of those are and what type of cases those are. So the experience that I bring is I practice as a trial attorney in all of those areas. And then I'm a judge. I was a judge for 8 years in family law and protective order court. And for the past year, I have been sitting as a judge in all of those areas. So I bring that experience. And one thing I want you to say, that I want you all to know, integrity is important here. And it's very simple. You can go to Dallas County's website. I practice in Dallas, Harris County, all the surrounding counties around Dallas, and you can look up the records. Please do that. Look up the records. Look up the appeals that was written for the 5th District Court of Appeals. Look those up and look to see if any of those were successful. And when I speak about integrity, that's so important, because one thing is I wouldn't tell you something that I don't have receipts for. I'm not going to say something about somebody else that I don't have receipts for. You can look that up yourself and see the number of cases.
Don't worry about it. All right, now, that time of community or audience input. So if you have a question, here's your time to submit your question. First question.
And this goes for both sides or both? Okay. So I have a question, because I did have a situation in the current Court of Appeals where majority of the current Court of Appeals, they all campaign together, they all share the same campaign manager, even in the trial court levels. And so I experienced a situation where the current judges basically did allow things in the trial court to happen that they would not allow if it was a case in a different court with different judges. And so I have a question in regards to you guys going forward is, you know, when you see that another judge that has done something egregious and done something wrong, like altered transcripts and you know, denied records, you know, in the trial clerks, would you be willing, what would you do if you saw that a trial court and a trial court, you know, clerk was doing things that was unethical, that deprived somebody of their due process? What would you do to protect that?
Okay, is your question if I personally witnessed another judge do something that was unethical, would I report them?
And even in your in the process of filing motions and briefs and things like that, would you see that judge and reprimand that judge versus deprive the litigant of their due process by denying them the ability to even write a brief?
Okay, now I cannot.
You got that?
Oh.
You got that, Judy?
Well, very clear.
Okay. A judge cannot reprimand another judge. They would have to go file a grievance with the Judicial Conduct Commission.
Right.
So that is in.
And that's what I
pretty
mean.
much.
Would you take it to that level?
Back and forth.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I would take it to that level if they were unethical.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Ms. Parks. I'm very familiar with, I think, the situation that she refers to. You know, we as judges, we're governed by a host of statutes. We're governed by the Texas Constitution, the United States Constitution. We're duty bound by our oath, not only as lawyers, but as judges, to follow those basic pronouncements of our society, and I try my best to do that. We all sure do, day in and day out. So it's my hope that I would do that up to the best of my ability.
All right, any more audience questions? Come on down.
Do they have to be honest? Do they have to be honest? Yes, he didn't do that.
All right, excuse me. Audience members, let me just go ahead and, again, come on. We are in a forum, not a debate. And the reason that we're not in debate, because if you go back and forth with a candidate, their time dwindles. And we won't have a chance to hear what their position is on a particular question. If you have any further questions about with the candidate, I suggest that you contact them either personally right after this, or reach out to them online and have them respond back to you. But right now, we're here to ask a succinct question, and hear from the candidate.
I have a question. One of them is to follow up with the question she asked that wasn't answered, which was, what would you do if you saw a clerk doing something such as not putting things in the system, setting them up on the docket? And my other question is...
On one question.
Okay, well, let me roll it into one.
Ask you one question. Both can answer.
Okay, well, let me forget that one. I want to know about this one. This is more important. I understand. Because would you show up What is your work ethic? Would you show up at 8 o'clock and do your job from 8 to 5, put your 8 hours in? I don't care if you show up at 10 o'clock, put your 8 hours in. And is your docket backed up? Or ever been?
My docket has never been backed up. I'm in fact one of the most prolific writers on the court. As I mentioned, I've had the time to ghostwrite for other judges on the court. You know, my workday starts at different times just about every day. I have 2 kids. I guess some of us start waking up earlier and earlier as we get older. I've certainly found that. So I end up starting work about 6 or 6:30 a lot of the times in my home office. But absolutely, I put in the 8 hours. I mean, there's no other way to get the job done. We are reading and processing. I mean, each week I'm a thick notebook, and that's just what the parties gave us. That's not reading case law. That's not reading old things that bind us. Things that I have to familiarize myself with just to make the decision in the case. So yeah, there's kind of no way to do it in any less than that time. You know, at least 40 hours a week. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. When I was presiding in the 255th, I showed up at 8 o'clock. I was there doing trials, and that's when my docket started. So of course, I don't have a problem with showing up early. I'm up at 3 o'clock at the gym at 5 o'clock, so I don't have a problem with that.
All right, I have a question. Discuss your approach to handling cases involving emerging legal issues such as cybercrime.
Okay, such as cybercrime. Well, I would definitely do the research, look at the case law, the precedent before, you know, what has come throughout the country regarding cybercrime, and I would definitely follow the law. I would not, you know, stray from it or try to favor one party over another for any type of reason. I would follow the law.
Thank you.
Emerging areas of law are really fun. It's true. We have to look all around the country at different cases that have come out. We have to look at what we've had. I always look. I try to look backwards in a way to see if there's something that I can think of that was analogous, that was like what we're dealing with today. So cybercrime. You know, we've had crime forever, and so there's a lot of different things that you know, theft, burglary, things that track decently with it. There's always a twist. But exploring those out there's always going to be law review articles. There are these really thick books that come out from each law school, at least one of them, and they're going to have about in a 100-page article, they're going to have like 500 footnotes. It's super dense to read, but that's the legal scholarship often comes out before those cases make it to the law. So that's one place I'd look to.
All right. Next question. What initiatives do you propose to address the challenges of mental health within the legal system?
Gosh, I love that question, number one, because for the last 3 years I've been part of the Judicial Commission on Mental Health here in the state of Texas. We had, what we did and what has happened at a statewide level is we brought together all the experts who deal with the intersection of mental health and the courts. We've got experts from academia, we've got practice area experts, we've got folks who are on the ground providing services to people in crisis who are dealing with their own problems, and many of whom their lives intersect with the courts. So what is happening, what continues to happen with the commission is studying problems. We're brainstorming solutions. We're creating, they created multiple resource documents just for judges to be able to say, hey, I have this problem, what do I do? Who do I call? Where can I send this person? How can we help? And so this continued attention is vital. The state has put together a lot of resources and in fact a lot of funding towards solving this problem. It's going to be around. There's probably nothing we can do to fix it completely, but the work that I did on that council, my term was just up here this last year. But the work we did, the work that they continue to do, is really moving the ball forward in that regard.
Sure. What initiatives do you propose to address the challenges of mental health within the legal system?
Okay. So what I have done in the past is Midlothian wanted to implement a mental health program along with their cops, so that they would, along with sending an officer out, they would send a mental health professional. So I worked with Midlothian and I sat on a panel to address the issues and how they should go about doing that. I also speak, throughout schools and mentor kids. So mental health is always a priority, and I plan to continue to do that. Plan to be involved in the community.
You're next.
I know.
I know. It comes quick. All right. Share your plans for collaborating with branches of government, with other branches of government, to address challenging legal issues or current issues.
Okay, so what I've done in the past, some of the state legislators, they have called me because they want to come up with a modification of some type of law. So I would sit there and write out what they should present to get passed as the law. So I've worked with the legislators to do those type of things, with Senator Royce West as well as Victoria Nieve.
Thank you.
I think it's really important for those of us who are subject matter experts to work with the legislature and the executive. And so part of my effort on the Commission for Judicial Commission for Mental Health was that collaboration. I testified at the legislature a couple times on different bills that were in the intersection with the appellate courts. I think that's vitally important to have a person who is living the life, who knows what is happening on the ground in terms of those things, and for those legislators to hear from you on that. Separately, they say the pen is mightier than the sword. Well, I wrote an opinion a couple of years ago that Senator Nathan Johnson actually took to the legislature, and dang if we didn't get the law changed on some pretty, what I thought was pretty bad law in the area of medical malpractice. And somehow a bipartisan group fell behind what I think was a pretty good idea. And so that's something that we in the appellate courts have a role where we can put our message right down on paper and send it straight to Austin. So those are a couple of things I like to do.
All right.
My question is, when it comes down to inappropriate things that happen in a case, such as prosecutor misconduct, witness tampering, police planting evidence, how will you handle those kind of cases in the appellate court?
Well, first off, I draw on my experience because I handled those cases as a criminal defense lawyer multiple times. As a court, that information has to be before me. We can only deal with what's in the record before us in the case. I can't look outside of the record. I can't go to the paper. I can't go to Facebook. So if it's presented in the record before us, I take a look at it with an open mind. And I will evaluate what the trial judge did. Sometimes, we're looking at, did the trial judge act within this wide of the range? And sometimes we're looking at, did the trial judge act within that kind of a range? It just depends on our standard of review, but I try to give a little bit of a visual way of looking at how what leeway we have as a court to decide. And so those cases need a critical eye, and they're vitally important, I think, to, bettering society is the word I'm looking for, making things better around here for everybody.
Thank you.
So understand that this is the Court of Appeals that we're talking about. And the only way a case is going to come up, someone has to appeal it from the lower level courts. So you would never see those cases in the appellate court unless they came up, someone suing for misconduct or someone suing for that, and they didn't like the decision made in the lower court. Then it would go up to the appellate court. But other than that, you would have to look at, another thing that's very important to look at is people And this is going off of this young lady's question. So when she talked about, you know, people campaigning together and stuff, they're not going to go against each other. So if the DA is campaigning with certain judges or certain justices, they're not going to go against each other in the decisions that they make. So just understand that.
Next question. All right, so discuss your strategy for promoting diversity and inclusion within the Fifth Court of Appeals.
Well, currently there is no diversity in there. And it seems like before our Greg Abbott decided to do away with diversity, equity, and exclusion, the Court of Appeals was diversity exclusion already. There is no attorney in there that's African American, who's a writing attorney a briefing attorney for the Court of Appeals. You can look at the pictures. I posted the pictures of every Court of Appeals on my social website. There is no diversity, and they're trying to keep it that way. And it's unfortunate because the cases that come in are from diverse families, diverse people, and each case is important. And you need someone who, you know, a diverse group of justices, a diverse group of judges that your case can go before to see it. So that's important. It's important. That's why I'm running for the 5th District Court of Appeals, because diversity is important. In this court, the governor didn't have to do away with diversity and exclusion. They did it on their own. And they're trying to keep it that way. So I'm asking for your support.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's easy sometimes to shoot shots. You know, there are a lot of different kinds of diversity. And one I think that's particularly important on an intellectual court is intellectual diversity. You have folks from practice areas across the spectrum of the law. We have civil judges, we have criminal, we have family. We have folks who've done a lot of different things. And yeah, we look different too. You know, we're a majority woman court. We will certainly become, by virtue of the Chief Justice race, even more diverse in that regard. It's all important. I don't reject the idea at all of the need for diversity in all ways, okay? I think that's vitally important. In furtherance of that ideal, I exclusively take clerks in the summer. Every year, I will take clerks from what's called the Collins Clerkship Program of the DBA, the Dallas Bar Association. Those are all minority clerks. And I have found, as no one anywhere should be surprised, that they are fantastic, curious, smart, fun, great law clerks. And so by lifting the next generation, I think it is a vitally important thing that we do to further, as I said, not to be trite, because I'm going to end this one is the same way I ended the last question, but to make this place a little bit better. So that's my idea.
Any more questions, audience? Now, I have one. Kind of interesting one. Tort reform. We have examples in the state of Texas where individuals have been wronged, and whether it's injured or they've done their time in jail and found out that they were innocent, and the state of Texas wants to give them pennies on the dollar for the time that they lost. What is your position on tort reform for the state of Texas?
All right, well, let me take the second part first. When I was in the DA's office here, I was part of a team that evaluated criminal cases, convictions for DNA evidence to see if those cases could be affected, if the conviction should be overturned, if they should be exonerated. At that time, I was in a room full of Republicans, and I was the only voice speaking up for people just their right to have the evidence tested. And in some of those cases, it showed dead to rights. It was that guy. But in some of those other cases, we have these exonerations where folks who had spent years in prison wrongly were exonerated. And you're right, given pennies on the dollar. Tort reform as a broader concept. You know, in 2003, the legislature brought all of this to us, a solution in search of a problem, okay? There was no problem, and they tried to act like there was. they passed, it actually included in that was the law that my opinion ended up getting changed. So in terms of tort reform, do I follow the law? I follow the law when I have to. There's a lot of tort reform laws on the books that we follow day in and day out at the court. But when there's wiggle room, or when there's a place for me to criticize, I make that criticism because I believe in it. And because I believe it's better for you and me, it's better for folks who get injured by large corporations who don't want to be held accountable for the things that they do to folks who otherwise can't help themselves. So that's my position on tort reform. I think there needs to be some rollbacks in terms of the tort reforms that have happened here in the state.
Thank you.
Mhm.
As far as the exonerees, yeah, they didn't get, I mean, there's no amount of money that can compensate them for the time that they had to spend as innocent people in the prison. So it's absolutely no amount of money. What they're given is a small amount. It needs to be more, but there's still no amount of money that can give them back the time, their life. And that's unfortunate. As far as tort reform, another reason that I'm specifically running for this court, there was an article in the Dallas Morning News on the 23rd of this month that talked about the unfairness of the civil cases in this court. That it's plaintiff strong. They go for what the plaintiff says instead of the defendant. And I don't think that's how you apply the law. You just don't go in and try to, I'm gonna even this out and eeny, meeny, miny, mo, I'm gonna take this case and reverse it just to make it even. That's not how the law works. When you take an oath to follow the law, you take an oath to follow it. Not follow it depending on who paid you on your campaign funds. That's not what you do. So there needs to be a change definitely in the 5th District Court of Appeals.
Question from the audience. Oh.
So Eric mentioned this in the way we are going to have new kinds of cases, as he said, with intellectual properties, but we also have cases that may be coming before you that will deal with women traveling to have abortions, people who are pulled over because they looked Hispanic or thought they were illegal. How do you plan on handling those new avenues where the Attorney General has put the Criminal Court of Appeals in a box?
Okay, so I can't just, blanketly give you an answer to that because I would have to look at the facts, the evidence of the case before I make a decision on that, on whether the trial court erred, if they prosecuted someone for traveling outside of, one of the outside of the state of Texas in one of the 6 counties that the Court of Appeals represents. I can't just blanketly answer that question.
Yeah, I'll say day in and day out, every single judge, I bet you, in this room is faced with enforcing laws that we don't love. Some of them we don't like, some we disagree with, some we think go against everything that we stand for. But we took an oath to follow the law, and if there's a situation presented, we look at the situation, that's right. And we have to follow the law. And so change happens in that regard from places outside of the judiciary. That's the way the system is set up. It doesn't mean any of us are happy about it.
Hi, good evening. I have a question for both candidates. When, if ever, or how many times have either of you been recused, involuntarily recused, forced off a case because of unethical behaviors that you have performed from the bench?
Never been involuntarily recused for any type of behavior in those terms that was unethical. I'm only thinking, I don't think I've ever been involuntarily recused. There have been times when I've recused, it was appropriate. We all are faced with those situations from time to time through our fault or the fault of others speaking to us about cases. So the answer is, to my knowledge, none.
Thank you.
I have never been recused off a case for being quote unquote unethical.
I want to circle back around to something that both of you all said in terms of your involvement and your advocacy for the law on several courts with different entities. I just want to ask you, how would you engage the legal community and the public to gather input on important legal issues that you brought before these different entities or you advocated for? Give us an example of how you brought in the community's input into your decision for advocating for or against a particular law.
Okay, you're asking how have we brought the community in? Okay, so I can speak specifically about when I sat in protective order court. I would meet with the advocates to see what their position was, and I would meet with the legislators to see how we can change some of the laws. And something else. So just involvement in the community. Like later on this month, I'll be speaking about teen violence. So that still has to do with the law and speaking to teens. So I stay in the community, going to schools or being a keynote speaker for different avenues of the law. And educating the community is important. And that's one thing about the 5th District Court of Appeals. The community needs to be educated about what it is, how do I appeal a case, how do I get to the 5th District Court of Appeals, because they have no idea what the 5th District Court of Appeals even is. They don't know where it sits, they don't know any of the justices, they don't know anything about it. So transparency and education is important, and that's something I plan to bring.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think bringing the community in a strict sense, it's impossible. You know, 3 judges get together, they evaluate what the parties have filed in a case, and they write up one or maybe a couple of different opinions in the case. But that's sort of just that's an easy answer, and frankly, it feels like a dodge to me. So that's not my final answer. You know, what we do is we go out to the community. You know, we do speak to various lawyers groups, to various community groups. Let me just say, to the notion that someone you run into at the corny dog stand here at the fair doesn't know what the Court of Appeals does, that doesn't say a thing. You could go out into the legal community right now, tomorrow, the next day, next week. Lawyers whose literal job it is to take cases to trial, to represent folks in divorces, to represent companies in business disputes, to write their contract. They don't know what we do. They don't have any idea what we do because they don't work in that area. They don't practice in our area. Appellate law is a niche. It's a specialty. I happen to have that expertise. You know, that too, that's one answer, you know. It is a court that is a niche. But what we do on our court, we do come out to the community. We do speak. We appear in schools. We do all the things in those terms that I find vitally important. And frankly, I mean, it's kind of fun. That's just, that's literally the way it is. That's actually what's happening by the justices on this court.
All right, I just want to remind our judges, watch the straight arrows. Focus the arrow on the target, please, and not just wayward. Okay, stay focused on the answer. Thank you.
Because these cases that go to these appellate courts are not fun to the litigants, because of the level of, you know, fundraising and campaigns that you do with the judges within Dallas County and on the appellate court, would seem to be there would be a level where a voluntary recusal would be necessary. And so when you see that one of the justices on your court is not acting in that way to voluntarily recuse themselves in the seriousness of these cases that are before you, because they affect your businesses. My question is, when you see that happen, would you be willing to turn in one of the justices on your own court for failing to recuse themselves when they knew, just like you and maybe another judge, that they should have recused themselves before they made a ruling in a case that made it difficult for the litigant to get backtracked?
Thank you.
Yes, and I think like the first question from you, Ms. Parks, I'm intimately familiar with the case. That sounds pretty familiar to the question you're asking. I can't commit to any particular answer. I know that when I'm asked to recuse myself, I make a decision whether I'm going to recuse myself or whether I'm not going to recuse myself. And so we all make those decisions and are accorded a certain amount of leeway in making those decisions. If the parties ask for folks to be recused, meaning other justices than myself, then the entire court takes up that cause. That's the process that we undertake here, but to commit to any particular scenario, it depends, but that's the best answer. Unfortunately, a legal answer, but that's the best we can do with that one.
Thank you.
To your question, I believe in integrity, and I took an oath to follow with the law. So if I see any of the justices doing something they have doing something that's illegal or doing something unethical, I would report them.
Good. All right. So I want to ask this question, and that's just made me just think about some things. As a plaintiff or defendant, I'm coming to you because my case didn't go right, that I feel. So I'm coming to you. I have my own counsel. My own counsel is going to give me advice on what judges are there, and what's the likelihood of me being successful in my case. So my question to you is, what will my attorney tell me what type of judge you are? What should I expect when I enter your court?
Okay. So the appellate court doesn't quite work like that. You don't enter the appellate court. You can file an appeal and you may get a decision, a written decision, and never appear before the three-judge panel. And so that's kind of tough to answer because you probably won't see them. But if you did, what kind of judge would they say I was? They would say I'm fair to everyone. Even if it's my friend coming before the court as an attorney, someone who I've had a long-term relationship with, I'm still fair. I'm going to base it on the facts and the evidence and read the transcript and see if there's an error, even if, a lot of the judges, all the judges have been, prior colleagues of mine. So I would have to read the transcript and see if there's any error.
Thank you.
Yeah, we take every case, that comes before us, and even those cases that we don't have an oral argument, you're going to appear because we're going to read your submissions. We're going to take them seriously. Some of the cases are argued before us, and some of them are not. We look at those cases, I think, in the fairest way possible to decide on how we will. My reputation, I believe, is a person who decides your case fairly, a person who's going to listen to both sides, a person who's going to evaluate the facts, the law, the evidence, and take it as it will. The legal scholars who looked at our court before we came on as a Democratic majority found that the decisions of an all-Republican Court of Appeals skewed towards those big money interests. And when we came on, the legal scholars found that the holdings of our court went to 50-50. Sometimes big money won, sometimes the little guy won. And I think if you're applying the law fairly, I think if you're doing right by our oath, that's how it ought to be, 50-50.
My question is, I was involved in a case when the appellate court heard the case. It took them 9 months to make a decision while somebody's sitting there rotting away in the penitentiary, and they could be innocent. So what takes so long? Because it don't take criminal justice courts that long to make a decision. So what's the hold up with the appellate court?
Well, on that particular case, obviously, no idea. It could have been a long trial. Could have been a lot of evidence. It could have been a complex legal issue. Sometimes we get crossways with one another. Sometimes somebody is writing a separate opinion from the court's majority opinion. All of that said, those are possible reasons why something, good reasons why something could have taken that long. I don't let cases sit that long, and particularly I heed the guidance that our rules and our state governance tells us to put criminal cases as a priority. As I said earlier, those cases, some of them are sticky and difficult, but my background, my experience, my expertise in criminal cases makes those cases much easier for me, and I dare say I've never had one go 9 months. I mean, I didn't go look, but they don't take me that long. I can promise you that, and frankly, ain't never gonna take me that long.
Okay, so I'm going to speak about the facts specifically about the 5th District Court of Appeals. There are 14 courts of appeals in the state of Texas. The 5th District Court of Appeals is third to last on disposing of cases. 9.7 months is how long they take to dispose of a case. Those are facts that you can go look up, that the court system in the state of Texas, they keep statistics on the courts. So those are facts that you can look up. And in addition to that, the disposal rate is 100% for civil cases. It's 81% for criminal cases. The criminal cases are the most important cases. Just like you were sitting there waiting, why should anyone have to sit there and wait? Civil cases shouldn't be a priority, and they are in this court. And that needs to be turned around.
All right, so we have come to the conclusion, and our candidates will give their 2-minute closing. We'll start with Judge Cooks.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I'm Judge Kim Cooks. I'm running for the 5th District Court of Appeals, place 11. Early voting starts February the 20th. I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for your support, because there needs to be a change in the 5th District Court of Appeals. There needs to be representation matters, and we've got to have representation. In 2024, how is it we don't have people that look like us sitting on the Court of Appeals? We don't have someone who's in the community sitting on the Court of Appeals. Why is that? Can anyone answer that question? Why is that? And diversity, equity, and inclusion is not in the 5th Court of Appeals. And that needs to be the case. They're doing every attempt possible to try to prevent us from, and that's myself and another person, from sitting on the Court of Appeals. How ridiculous is that in 2024? So I'm asking for your support. Go tell your friends, go tell your families, take everyone to the polls, tell your church members. Kim Cooks, 5th District Court of Appeals, place 11. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Justice Corey Carlisle, and of course I'm running for re-election to my seat. Of course, I want to keep the job that I love, the job that I think I'm dang good at, the job that I have built a career full of expertise, a career full of learning how to do this job, to serve the folks of North Texas. I love my job. I want to keep my job. I do. There was an article that came out in the Dallas Morning News. It was in the opinion section. It called our court a judicial hellhole. And I wear that like a badge of approval. You know why? It was written, it was bought and paid for by Republican dollars. The former vice chair of the Travis County Republican Party wrote that article. He wrote that article with Texas for Lawsuits Reform talking points. What is that? TLR? Big money Republican talking points. money Republican talking points that a Democrat tried to point out and tried to run on to say that the other person is not qualified. We Democrats don't run on Republican talking points. That's disqualifying. It's embarrassing to have done no homework and cite an article like that. That article had no facts in it. I can tell you, I'm there every day. It's no hellhole. We do damn good work. And I'm proud of the work of the court. I look forward to continuing my service to bringing a voice that does not appear on that court for another 6 years. My name is Corey Carlisle. I look forward to being your justice in place 11 for another 6 years. Thank you so much.
All right, let's give our candidates a round of applause. All right, next we have up our District Judge 152nd Judicial District, Attorney Kim Bailey, Attorney Tracy Michelle Shelby. Please make your way to the stage. So again, we'll start with 2-minute openings and we'll begin with Attorney Bailey.
Hopefully I won't miss this out. Should have worn my hands. All right. Good evening. Thank you for having me and for giving me time to speak. My name is Kim Bailey. I am running for judge of the 162nd Civil District Court in Dallas County. A little bit about me. I am an attorney that has been practicing for over 32 years as a trial lawyer, a civil trial lawyer. I am running, there are 2 points I think that are really important when looking at a trial court judge. The first is fairness. Everybody who walks into a courtroom and has their case deserves to be treated fairly and to have their cases heard, both sides, and have the decision made based upon the facts and the law. I would say that I have a reputation in my practice of fairness, and that's evidenced by the fact that I am being supported in this race by plaintiffs' lawyers and defense lawyers. Many of them lawyers who are on the other side of cases from me are supporting my campaign. The other point that I think is really important for you to look at when you're looking as to who you want to be a judge is efficiency. What we need is someone who will show up and do the hard work that it takes to keep cases moving through, keep the docket moving. As I said, I've been practicing for over 32 years in trial courts, not only in Texas, but in Georgia, in Maryland, in Virginia, and in DC. I'm the candidate in this race who has the experience of knowing what needs to be done in trial court, having done it for 30 some odd years, and would be the one who could, on the first day, get the job done and keep the wheels moving. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Shelby, and I am running for the 162nd Civil District Court. A little bit about me. Originally from Pine Bluff, Arkansas. I have 24 years of legal experience, including trial experience, jury and bench, a master of law from Georgetown University, and securities and financial regulations. I clerked for 2 federal judges in Philadelphia. I also have an MBA from Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth College. I have worked on Wall Street doing real estate private equity, taking companies from public to private in the real estate sector. Why I'm running? I'm running for this seat for the community. Why for the community? It's because when I relocated here to Dallas in 2010 and 11, I started fighting against Save Your Home companies. And those companies are companies who were stealing our homes. And I got involved. I took them to district court, got TROs, and the best place for them to be was with bankruptcy. I partnered up with the trustee and Judge Hell, and we bought adversary proceedings and reversed those sales. That's what I did. I walked away from private equity to do community work. And I'm running for the community because I'm of the community, by the community, and I'm working for the community. I am the only candidate in this race that gets out here and get involved in community issues. The community needs a voice, and I'm bringing that voice to the bench and be the voice for our community. Tracy Shelby for judge, your community fighter, your community advocate.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. As you all know, there are a lot of courts,
Yes.
and sometimes it can be confusing. So if you would, could you give us in your words what this court is, and how does your skills, what skills you have that prepared you for this court, to serve this court?
This is civil district court. It is our largest trial court in the county. I refer to it mostly, it's about money. This is a money court. You are sued because it's personal injury, medical malpractice, breach of contract, judicial foreclosure, consumer debt. It's always about money. So I call it the big money court. This is, if outside of federal court, this is where most of our large judgments are coming out of. What has prepared me for this seat? Now, I'm a well-rounded attorney that have had jury trials. I have had bench trials. I have clerked for 2 federal judges. Now, by clerking for 2 federal judges, it gave me the experience to write opinions, to hear a huge different types of law, and to understand it from criminal to civil. And also, what prepared me for it is that, can you believe I'll be the only judge on the bench with an MBA in finance? I can read a financial statement. And I can bring that expertise to the business litigation. But the most important thing that is preparing me for this work, for this bench, is my community work. Is that I've been out there with the community. I know their issues. The biggest issues in our community are the consumer debt cases and the cases of judicial foreclosures with home equity line of credit and HOAs. They are going over 90% unanswered, automatic default judgment, because our community cannot represent themselves. Our community cannot afford attorneys, and I'm about to change that. Tracy Shelby, thanks.
Okay, to just clarify that a little bit. So this court handles every type of civil case that does not fall into, that it's not probate, that it's not bankruptcy, and it's not family law. Obviously, it's not criminal. So you have employment cases, contract cases, court cases, so injury cases, you have business disputes, pretty much anything that's not those other 3 areas. And what prepared me for this? One would be my legal background of practicing in large law firms, small law firms, practiced in my own personal law firm. I've also practiced at 3 multinational corporations, both in their litigation group and on the business side. So I have the business experience and the legal experience. And more so, I have the trial experience of 30 some odd years to know how the court works, how it needs to work, and what the rules are. In addition, I currently represent individuals just like you and me who have been sued for one reason or another. And I represent them through my employer at no cost to them. My job is to protect their interests. So I understand what individuals who are going through lawsuits need and how they can be best protected. That's my experience.
All right. So next question. So if elected, discuss what are your strategies for fostering transparency within this court?
So initially, one, from a transparency from a lawyer's standpoint, and I thought about this from what I would want and what I want to see in a court. I plan to have my policies, my rules, and my procedures published so that the lawyers who are representing their clients in court will know what to expect. They will know beforehand what sort of briefing they need to do. They will know how we're going to determine whether their case is actually going to go to trial at a specific time, so they can best advise their clients on what needs to happen. I plan to have pretty much an open door where lawyers can come in when I'm not in a trial and talk to me about issues and what they'd like to see. But I plan to put something out on the website and where people can find what they need to know about how to practice in my court.
Thank you.
Transparency for my court. Every judge will have the policy and procedures on the website for attorneys, licensed attorneys, to know how to practice. That's easy. The hard part about being on this bench, and that sometimes elected officials, judges, get lost in, is the community. Is the ones, the pro se people, pro se litigants. They can reach a procedure, but they don't have the skill to practice. But I'm changing that. And one way that I will change that and make my court more transparent is that I will have a monthly seminar for pro se litigants, that if you need to practice law, I can't tell you how to practice your case, but I can walk you through the steps of litigation. Partner with different community organizations to get it out there in the community that the courts are open and they are available for us to come in. That was important. The community is important. And outside of having my pro se litigant, one thing I will adopt from the federal judges that I worked for is that when they had a policy once a week, attorneys, litigants could come walk in as long as you bring the other side to ask questions. That was the open door policy that I have told everyone that I would have in my court that's not present in this court. Once again, the most important things, I'm not worried about attorneys. Attorneys are trained. What I'm worried about are the people who are not trained. Our community elects us. Our community is forgotten about. They only come to our community during election time. Thank you.
Stain, Remain. Question to us. I know. It's quick. In cases where, first of all, let me ask, are there any questions from the audience?
There is no video recording, no picture taking. All of that is prohibited. Thank you so much.
I have a question in regards to transparency. I know that all courts have their standards and how to practice. But when it comes to transparency, it's more so the transparency of relationships that they have with parties. Like a lot of judges, like I believe the other candidate said that she gets campaign donations from plaintiff's attorneys and she gets campaign donations from defendant's attorneys. And so, or something like that. And so when it comes to those donations and the rules of the court, is there going to be a level of letting the parties know that, hey, this particular attorney or this party donated so much to my campaign, in a point where it's like the max level? Are you going to make that a point to notify the litigants or any kind of outside relationship that you have with a party? Notify the litigants up front before the case starts if they want to move forward.
That is a good question about transparency, because a lot of judges, unfortunately, are supported by law firms that practice in the court. The great thing about my campaign, I'm supported by the people, the community, that really have deep dug deep in their pockets to support me. For the firms that have financially supported me, I will disclose it. So if you have a case before me, and it's ABC law firm on the side, and I will let you know that ABC law firm has donated to my campaign. And I will let you know, I personally don't have, if I have a conflict or not, and let you decide if that amount you believe I may need to recuse myself. And I will tell you the reason why I will or will not do it. But I will be transparent about it. I have nothing to hide. Because I'm running this race for people like you. I'm running this race for people in our community that cannot afford the law firms. I'm running this race for everyday working people that believes in me and have believed in me, that is supporting me. The community supports me. The church supports me. The religious faith leader supports me. I will be transparent. I have nothing to hide because I'm fighting for you, the people. Thank you.
So let me correct. Going to your question, my comment was that I was supported by plaintiffs' lawyers and defense lawyers. As far as, I hadn't said anything, but
No.
when I say, I'll answer that. When I say support, I mean they are willing, they support me in voting for me. That's what I meant by support. Now, to your point, have I gotten donations from law firms and individuals? Most definitely, that is true. Nothing to hide. In fact, you can look up who I've gotten donations from. There are reports online. We have to report that. So it's out there for anyone to see. In fact, in this race, I filed 2 reports that will show you not only who it was, but how much they donated. Let me be clear about something. I know what it is. I represent just normal people, regular individuals, and small businesses. And so I know what they need and what they're looking for. The law firms, who the law firms are, has no impact on what I would do as a judge. And to the extent that anyone wanted to know, here's a list of people who've contributed. I have no problem in disclosing that because it has no impact on what I do as a judge. What I do as a judge will have to do with the facts of the case before me and the law that's applicable to it. That's it, nothing else. Nobody else matters other than those parties who are in front of me in that case and what they've argued and what they said and what the law is.
Remain. Any other questions from the audience? All right. Currently right now, you know, we're in this age of technology, and one of the hot button items right now is artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. It is infiltrating its way into all of our parts of our lives. It's so good that there's been cases where individuals have gotten into law school. It's given AI the questions, and that person was admitted into law school. Also, it's gotten some lawyers in trouble because they tried a case using AI, and it went horribly wrong. My question to you, so discuss your stance on the use of AI in your legal decision-making process.
In my legal decision-making process, or litigants using AI?
Litigants using it.
Okay. Well, to the extent that litigants were to use AI in my court, I would want that to be disclosed. What they used, how they used it, what parts it is. And I would also have them, because attorneys are under oath, I want them to certify that they have gone through, they may have used it, but that they have, just like we've always done, gone through and looked at what those cases are, looked at the law, and have confirmed to me that that is exactly what the law is, not something that's made up that sounds good. As an attorney, when I've been practicing and I'm briefing, I write my briefs, I look at all the law, and I quote them. And then what I do before I get to an argument is I look at the other side's briefs. And I look at their case law, and I verify that not only what I've said, because I think my argument's right, is what the law is, but I also look to their arguments and to see that they have actually quoted what is actually in the law. And as a judge, my plan is to actually read both, so attorneys would have to certify to me that not only tell me that they used it, but that they have done the work themselves to make sure that it's accurate and it's law.
Thank you.
AI. I believe in technology. I believe in advancement technology. As a person who clerked for 2 federal judges, have wrote over 100 opinions before AI was developed, I expect my attorneys to do the same. So when attorneys write briefs, there's something called blue booking citing. That from very basic we learn in legal writing 101. Whatever resources you use, AI, cases, statute, articles, you must cite it. I expect that. Let's go back to integrity. If an attorney is writing a brief, they come into the court, you are an officer of the court. So I expect you to make sure that you cited that AI, whatever part you used of it, will have had part of you writing this brief in court. Would I use AI to write my opinions when I do have to write them? No. I have had years of experience of it. So AI is important to advancing technology, but once again, if it's come down to attorneys, they're officers of the court, they have to cite their resources, and I will expect that in my court. Thank you.
You're up. You're up for the question.
You leave it that way.
I know. Any questions from the audience? Any questions from the audience? Any questions? Okay. All right. Next question. I have a whole stack of questions.
See.
Yeah. All right. Given the diverse population and unique cultural dynamics in Texas, how do you plan to ensure in your court system, how do you plan to ensure that the court system is sensitive and responsive to the needs of different communities?
That's the whole basis of why I'm running. Because right now, I believe our court system has lost the needs of our community. What I'm planning to do, day one, I am planning to have my pro se seminars. I am planning to partner up with different organizations in the Latino and Hispanic community to let them know that you can come to our courts. One thing I have worked on in the Hispanic and Latino communities with undocumented immigrants in the construction area, where they're not being paid for their work. And they're too afraid to come to our courts and sue because they feel that they will be reported. I want to change that. If you're in the United States and then you're currently in Dallas, Texas, if anything has been done wrong to you and you have a civil lawsuit, you have a right to file it in our court. I'm going to partner up with some of our bigger churches to come in and teach our community about civil litigation, about what to do when you get sued, how to file an answer, how to proceed through litigation. The best thing that anyone can do for a community is educate them. Education is power. I'm going to educate our community on the law. I'm going to change with my court how we respond to pro se litigants, how we respond to consumer debt, how we respond to judicial foreclosure. With that change, I want to be a model. And I hope by being a model and having impact in the community that the other courts will follow. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the court we're talking about, most of the litigants in these courts are actually not pro se litigants. They are represented by attorneys. As far as diversity in the courts, I've actually already been involved in programs going out and talking to the community about civil courts, what the process is, how do you go through it? What are the resources for people who don't have attorneys? Where they can go to get help to assist them in getting through the courts and having their cases heard. The other thing that I think is important that we need to look at in the courts is the lack of diversity in our juries, which is an issue that we have right now and needs to be addressed. And I agree, education actually is the important part in going out and letting people know how important it is that they serve on juries so that the people who are parties have people who look like them being part of the jury. I've already started working on those issues.
Any questions from the audience? I have one. Texas is known for its strong commitment to individual rights and liberties. How would you protect and uphold these rights in your role as district court judge, particularly in cases involving constitutional issues and civil liberties?
So, and as you heard Justice Carlisle say, that is civil rights and issues are kind of the bedrock of our country and our rights. So in all things, that is important for us to protect as a judge. There are though we also though have the duty to follow the law. And so there possibly are things that we will have to rule that follow the law that we may not agree with, we may not like. But one thing about this job, there will be some gray areas. And in those gray areas is where the judge can use their discretion to make decisions that are going to protect the rights of those individuals in our community. And that's the part where I'm actually really excited about being able to do that because, I mean, let's face it, in Texas there have been some laws passed by our Republican legislature that are just really abhorrent. And so I think it's important for us at trial bench where there's some issues that are of first impression to take that opportunity to work with and make sure we're protecting the rights of our citizens.
Thank you.
Civil liberties. Definitely gonna follow the Constitution. Definitely gonna follow the state constitution. Definitely gonna follow the law. I'm gonna make sure that as judge and as the person who's in the community fighting now, that I protect everyone's civil liberties. I even go a step further. I'm gonna protect everyone's due process. Even for the few, quote, unquote, she said, few people who come to court pro se. I'm going to protect our community. That is my role as a judge. That is my role as an attorney. That is my role as an American citizen, is to protect your liberties. Besides I protect yours, I protect mine. So, in my court, if it's not a case of first impression, definitely follow the law. Case of first impression, follow the law, may have a chance to put some creativity to it. But one thing I would do is, number one, is always be fair. Fairness is the number one thing in court. And make sure through fairness that each individual can get their justice. Thank you.
My next question is just on experience, because if you have to follow the law, you need to be experienced. And so my question would be like, how many cases have you tried, or when was the last time you tried a case, so that you are familiar with the law and just, just the things that are going on for both sides?
Cases I have tried. Over my career, I totally career everything I have practiced. I probably have tried about jury trials, about 30 cases, because civil cases just don't really go to trial. But one thing I did differently after I came to Texas is that my cases were settling. So I started partnering up with everyday trial attorneys that would try criminal cases that was going to trial every week because I wanted to stay in court. And even though I didn't practice criminal law, I was able to call them and say, hey, you need someone second chair, let me second chair. So I would bring that experience to the court. The last time I had a jury trial, it was in 2019. The last time I had a bench trial, last week. That experience of trying cases, being in different courts, practicing, working as a law clerk, practicing law on the business side is going to make me well-rounded to be the judge on civil district court. Thank you.
Thank you.
I honestly could not tell you how many cases I've tried to a jury. I didn't keep track, but I'll tell you I've been practicing for 30 years, and we can extrapolate from this. In the past 4 years, well, 3 if you take out COVID, I've had 8 cases that I've tried to jury, and I would say another 5 in that same time period that we either started and settled before we got to the jury verdict, or we settled the morning of the trial. So we were prepared for the trial, but it didn't go because we settled it right there. 95% of civil cases settle. So most of them just resolve that way. And just to correct, fewer cases are per se. My experience in trying those cases, in having the experience of trying it in not just the Texas civil courts, but civil courts in other jurisdictions. So I have knowledge of different approaches of how things work. And also, again, similarly, my experience as on the business side, having worked for corporations on, not in the litigation department, but on the other side, the commercial side of business, is also, the fact is I've tried all of the types of cases that are heard in this case, in this court.
Thank you. Romaine?
Oh, yeah. Forgot, sorry.
All right. In Dallas, Dallas is a hotspot. Many people want to move to Texas, and one of the areas they move to Dallas. It's estimated that over 300 people move to Dallas each day. Okay. With that comes the opportunity for conflict. So that leads me to this question. As a growing population in Dallas, this leads to increasing caseloads in courts. How do you plan to address the challenges and manage a high volume of cases while maintaining the quality and efficiency of the judicial process?
Well, so my current experience of handling a high volume of cases all in litigation will prepare me for that. So as a general rule, if you want to know what my day looks like as a trial lawyer, I generally would start work, and I work from my home office, at about 6:15, and work through the day. And many days I'm working till 8 or 9 or 11. It depends on if I have a trial or if I have a brief due. And I don't expect that to change. That is, I've talked about, one of the things that I've noticed, or from my side of the bench, is in some courts there's a delay in getting orders signed. And I've already thought about, trials generally start at 9. So what I plan to do is to have myself start earlier and have attorneys have the opportunity to have things, motions and orders heard and determined before the trial date starts. And then even after trial date, to better accommodate everyone's schedule and to make sure that we start moving through some of the backlog and keep it moving so that people can get their cases heard in an efficient, timely manner. That's the way I work now, and that's what I plan to continue to do as a judge.
Thank you.
What are my plans? That's a great question. The first judge I clerked for was Honorable Patrice B. Tucker in Philadelphia, and I'm smiling because I was a third law clerk. And when you get appointed federal judges, you get dumped all of the bad cases. And she only had but 2 law clerks, and we probably had over 1,500 bad cases. Not bad cases, but cases that were complex, that been on the docket for years, motions pending, more than 6 months. I came up with an efficiency plan. As a federal law judge, you write a lot of opinions. And I came up with a process for Judge Tucker, where I call it, short, brief, order opinion writing, that we was able to get through these cases. So in my first year of my 2-year clerkship, we took her 1,500 cases down because we were day in and day out. I'm planning to do that in my court. I didn't get here for slacking. I got here for hard working. What I'm going to bring in were some good things I learned from my judges. I'm going to bring in the settlement conferences. I'm going to bring back the scheduled conferences, get involved in the cases earlier. Like I told you, I'm going to have 1 day a week that it will be open for if both sides want to come, they can come. I'm going to have the pro se seminars to help pro se people to move faster. So efficiency, transparent, I have a plan, and I'm ready to go. Thank you.
My question is, I've heard both candidates say that you have done work in the community, and what I would like to know is, what does that look like? Where is the community? I understand that Legal Services North Texas does community work. Everybody can't qualify for that because there's a scale. So when you have volunteered in the community, where has it been and what have you actually done?
That is a great question. For me, how I've volunteered in the community, I have volunteered for working with the Hispanic Contractor Association to help the undocumented contractors to rewrite their contracts. I've helped them file their cases down in JP Court, drafting a drafted petition that they could use. I have voluntarily represented people who've been evicted in JP Court. I have volunteered at DVAP. I sit on a nonprofit board called the People Servant, where we go out and challenge students in their reading and academics. Even through my connections to my faith leaders, I have volunteered coming into their churches, teaching issues regarding the law, taking on free pro bono cases of people who could not afford it. And the great thing I have done, doing that foreclosure work, Save Your Home Companies, if you look at most of my filings that I took these cases mostly pro se, through word of mouth, through people, through organizations that knew that people was being foreclosed on. I took them on and I fought for them. So my work in the community goes very deep. Where there's need, I'm there. Where I'm asked, I show up. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, and I guess I'm not sure exactly which community you're asking about, but as far as community work, most of my community work outside of the legal field, I've volunteered to do work in DFAP, as she mentioned, in other legal organizations. But most of my community work has been through my church and in working with them, and mostly on that, dealing with the benevolent side of helping individuals in the community in different committees and ministries of my church here in Dallas. I go to church in Cedar Crest. That's been most of my community involvement on that level.
Thank you. Just Candace, so you know, when you speak, the audience and the camera wants to see your bright, shiny faces. So, all right. Any other questions from the audience? All right. I have a question. I know. When you return for re-election, what is one thing that you would have accomplished differently than the current situation in this court? What would you have improved?
When I return, what I envision I will have improved is one, having hopefully dealt with the backlog that still exists in the courts due to COVID-19. The other thing I hopefully will have done is dealt with what I mentioned before, which is the diversity issue within the jury pool and improving that situation. Those are the two things that I think I'd want to have said I've done, amongst other things, but those would be the top two things I would want to come back and say that I have dealt with when I come back for re-election.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me know I'll be elected. So what would I would say I've accomplished when I come back for re-election? The first thing I would accomplish, I would change the default rate in consumer debt cases and judicial foreclosure. I would have been in the community educating our community, setting up programs along with the law schools here to get them to work with their community to file answers, to help have a settlement program, mediation programs with the law school students to help them to help the consumer debt and the judicial foreclosure. That's number one. The second thing I would accomplish is my pro se seminars, going out in the community and better educating. I want to believe that after 4 years of being on the bench, that my community will be more educated, wiser, and better prepared to bring a lawsuit or defend a lawsuit if they're sued. This better knowledge, better educated. Those are my two number spots I'm focusing on, outside of having a more efficient court and a court where I'm cleaning up the backlog. My two biggest areas is the consumer debt and the judicial foreclosure. Thank you.
All right, we've come to that point where we're going to give our 2-minute closing, and we'll begin with Attorney Shelby.
Once again, I am Tracy Shelby. I'm running for judge because I saw there was a need for our community. I'm running because community needs me. And I needed the community also. The community gave me, when I moved here to Dallas, the community gave me a reason to fight. The community in Dallas gave me a reason to get involved. I saw those cases as my grandmother and my grandfather, my uncles and uncles being preyed upon, and I couldn't just sit by. I walked away from a job where there was a lot of money and to do a work that was more fulfilling. My heart is in the community. Our purposes live in South Dallas to be more involved in the community, more present, more fighting. I'm asking the community to stand up for me as I stood up for you. I'm asking the community to fight for me as I fight for you. The community needs a voice on the bench. The community needs someone that wants to make sure it stays protected. Fairness is a road. Fairness The big companies would get it. They can hire the big law firms. Fairness doesn't come all the way down Martin Luther King at times. Fairness needs to. I want to change that. I am your judge, Tracy Shelby, for the 162nd, who's of the community, by the community, working for the community. The only candidate in this race that actually does community work and put community and the fairness for the community first. Thank you.
Again, thank you for being here, and thank you for your questions. And I'm running because, and as I said earlier, I represent regular people, small businesses, and my job right now is protecting their interests. And as a judge, my job will be to protect their interests, people I represent, and the interests of everybody else, regardless of whether I know them, whether I like them, whether I agree with them. That would be my job. And that is a job that I am uniquely qualified to do as the one in this race who has that experience of going through trials with people and talking to them and understanding their concerns as they go through the legal system and what worries them and what protections they need. I've been doing that for over 32 years. And in all of those types of cases, the types of cases that actually come before this court, I know what they need and I know how to protect them, and I'm running to do that. I'm also the one who, because of my experience, can get that job done in the most efficient manner. My name is Kim Bailey. I am asking you for your support and your vote in the March 5th primary. Thank you.
All right, let's give a round of applause for our contestants. Questions. All right, so next we have our final form for our sheriff candidates. Sheriff Marion Brown, incumbent, please make your way. Officer Sam Muhammad, Officer Rodney Thomas, former Sheriff Lupe Valdez, former Constable Roy Wooden Jr. Please make your way to the stage. Ready? Ready? All right, we'll begin with an incumbent, Sheriff Brown.
Good evening. My name is Marion Brown. I am your Dallas County Sheriff, and I am running for re-election because I have been serving in this capacity for 5 years now, and in doing so, I have found many areas that needed work, and I have gone to do the work. For example, I'll talk about when COVID arrived here in Dallas County, and Dallas County Sheriff's Department emerged as a leader in custody management. Many of the processes and the procedures that were used during COVID by the other 253 counties were processes and procedures that were initiated here in Dallas County and that were looked upon by the Texas Jail Commission. And when the Jail Commission noticed those procedures, they contacted us and inquired as to whether or not they could use those procedures to help the other counties throughout the state of Texas. So not only are we doing the work here in Dallas County, but we are also helping all of the counties throughout the state of Texas. In addition, we continue to update all of the processes and the procedures that needed updating. I hope that you all heard last week when the Texas Jail Commission came to do their surprise inspection last week, and on Friday reported a, quote, excellent report in the jail. So I am asking you to allow us to continue to do the work, because this is not the time for us to go backwards. It's not the time for us to take on a novel idea of doing things. This is the time to continue doing the work and pressing forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Officer Thomas.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rodney Thomas. I'm running for the Dallas County Sheriff. I am also the only progressive candidate here. running for the sheriff. I believe in community policing. Community policing is hugely important to me. We have to start mentoring our youth once again, and we have to start bridging the gap between the community and law enforcement. And that is one of the reasons why I'm running for the Dallas County Sheriff, because there needs to be more effective change within the Sheriff's Department. There needs to be stronger leadership within the Sheriff's Department. And I'm the person that can actually bring that to the helm and also bring that job where we can effectively work together within the community. Because right now we have a huge gap within our community, which needs to be strengthened. We need to tighten that up. And we also need to run our jail more effectively. And that's why I am running for the Dallas County Sheriff, and myself, and I have a team that is ready to take office once we are elected into office, as far as my transition team. They are smarter than me, which I'm fine with, and that's what you need. You need people that are going to challenge you when need to, because it doesn't make sense to be the smartest person in the room, but to have different ideas to make the Sheriff's Department to run as one, is everything. My name is Rodney Thomas, and I'm running for Dallas County Sheriff, and I want to say thank you early for making me your Dallas County Sheriff in November 5th, 2024. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sheriff Valdez.
Sorry, I'm short. First of all, thank you very much for having this forum. We really appreciate it, and we know how hard it is to put things like this on. So, in 2005, I became the sheriff of an understaffed, overpopulated, unsanitary, and a department that routinely beat up minorities. We went in and rolled up our sleeves, and we got the help of the commissioners, Parkland, maintenance, judges, DA, nonprofit organizations, outside organizations, to bring back a better program. We started working on the structure first. The jail was a mess. You're supposed to change the inmates' clothing twice a week. They couldn't change it every 2 weeks because the washing machines were constantly breaking down. So we went item by item and started fixing all of these things. Once we got that done, we came back and started doing programs for the inmates. We did life skills, and we started the mentally health program. We've started the new hospital in the jail. We also brought in the new building. Notice I say we. Nobody does it alone. We constantly had help from other people. We started life skill programs of machinists, welding, horticulture, commercial printing. We started all these programs. I'm running for sheriff because I want to continue these programs that were pushed away in 2018, 2019, and I want to bring back these programs, and I want to continue the growth in several areas. My name is Lupe Valdez. I'm running for sheriff. Appreciate your support.
Thank you. All right, question from Mr. Thomas. Officer Thomas. Let's get the nitty gritty. Let's go. How do you plan to strengthen community police relations in Dallas County? Through the Sheriff's Office.
Through the Sheriff's Office. First initiative will be what I've been working on with my teams called Night of the Chiefs. Basically, every quarter, we'll go to different cities within the county to talk to the community and community leaders, find out what's bothering them, what we need to do to make their area safer. So now we give the community a voice, which is what they haven't had. So if they have a voice to voice their opinions and voice their concerns when they're actually talking to the sheriff and the sheriff's team, it makes everything better. They can actually touch me, they can actually see me, and we can work on their concerns. And then once we hash out the concerns, we go back to the table and start working together to start building those relations and address any issues that the community had.
Thank you.
Same question?
Same question.
It's difficult with community policing because DPD has the local jurisdictions in the city. The sheriff has the rural non-incorporated areas. But let me tell you what I already did. I went to the African American Pastors Association and I asked them for their challenges, and we tried to work on it together. I went to the neighborhood associations and I asked for their challenges, and we tried to work on it together. I went to the nonprofits and I asked them for their challenges and help. And basically what I said, help me find the solution. The nonprofits, the Pastors Association, the neighborhoods, and business organizations. It was very common for me to go to Toyota, to AT&T, to, I can't even think of, Mercedes Financial, and I went to several others trying to say, here's what our issue is, can you help us and can we help you? So I continue to do this in all different areas. When I work for DeSoto Police now, and basically I'm doing the same thing for them there. We just got several grants for stuff that they needed. They needed some anti-overdose vaccines that I just got for them. They needed a person that helped with youth advocate that I just got for them. And when I say we work together to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Brown.
I'm proud to say that I have a background in community policing. It's what I did in municipal policing for many years before I came to Dallas County Sheriff's Department. But when I became the sheriff, one of the first things that I did was I implemented a community relations unit. And that was for the purpose of reaching out to the community and making sure that the community knew that they had a contact within the Sheriff's Department. As a result of implementing that unit, then we also have now what we call Meet the Deputy, and that is where we go to those unincorporated areas, but not just the unincorporated areas, but primarily the unincorporated areas, because those are the areas that we're charged to provide police services to. And so we have an occasion where the community gets to meet their deputy and they get to share their concerns happening there in the community. In addition, we started what we call a community engagement session, and that is that every class that graduates, before they graduate from the academy, they have to go through the community engagement session. And that's a session where they spend 4 hours talking with members from the community, friend or foe, that we have brought in, and that they get an opportunity to share and listen to why people think the way they think about the police and why the police think the way that they think about the community. So we've already been engaged in community policing, and we plan to continue that effort.
Thank you. Sheriff Brown. Question is, what measures will you take to enhance the training for deputies on de-escalation techniques?
Currently, there is a requirement for all deputies to take this course. That is part of the 40 hours that you have to do every 2 years to take de-escalation, and there are several others that are very good to take those. Not only is it mandatory, we need to go in there and do things so it'll make it easier for them to understand the challenge. We need to do role playing. We need to do crowd engagement. One of the things we did at the academy, which I'm bringing the academy back to in-person training, and one of the things we used to do was have a crowd experience so they could get the feeling of the challenge by the crowd coming at them and trying to get them to understand that right there you need to take care of your own personal anger before you engage with the people. So I want to bring back the challenges, and I want to bring back the organization where you can meet them. Hang on. There's nothing like hands-on training. When you meet the challenge head-on, you're better aware of how you're going to react. And so I plan to bring back that hands-on training.
Thank you. Sheriff Brown?
Actually, that training already takes place within our in-person academy. And as I stated previously, we have what we call community engagement, and I want to be sure to expound upon that because I think it's important for you to realize that when we bring people in, we bring them in on a Friday and we say to them, okay, for the next 4 hours, you sit and you talk to these community activists, you talk to these community members, and you talk to them and learn what their issues are and why they would be inclined to not support the police. And so I think that that's really important for us to do in terms of engaging with our community. So again, we'll continue to do that effort. We give our candidates for deputy, we tell them that this is an opportunity for you without any repercussion to say, you know what, I've heard from them and I don't like the attitudes of the people and how they think about the police, and so I don't really want to do this anymore. And we tell them that's quite all right, but we ask them to have candid conversations with the individuals that we bring in, and we ask them to be open-minded. We ask everybody to please go home and think about it. And so this, I think, helps in our effort to de-escalate. We already train our people to do the de-escalation. It is a requirement that we train them, and I think that this simply enhances the engagement with the community when we're talking about de-escalation. Thank you.
Thank you. Officer Thomas?
Thank you. Like I said, I'm an out-of-the-box thinker. I've been also studying other departments around the country. For instance, Miami-Dade Police Department. They have a use of force training module unit where they actually study use of force videos of officers getting into different altercations. And then they take that training or that video and they implement it into their academy. And another caveat for me, I would like to increase our academy from the 5 months to the 8 months, where they get more de-escalating training where they're not just sitting in a room, but they're actually getting out into the community for 2 weeks at a time with an FTO to learn what's going on in the field. Because to sit down and look at a book or look at a training, that's one thing, but to actually get in the field and see for yourself the community that you are going to be charged to police is everything. So that is just one of the initiatives I would like to bring to the Dallas County Sheriff. Possibly we can increase, obviously that takes talking to Commissioner's Board, but it's not something that can't be done. So increasing our academy from 5 months to 8 months, and we actually include more de-escalation training, as well as putting a use of force training unit, will work very well, I feel. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, are there any questions from the audience?
My question is, with the state of Texas closing down so many mental health institutions, and these people are being housed by the city jail, the state jail, which is Luke Sturry, what are your strategies of trying to get this reversed so the jail can house criminals instead of the mentally health people? Thank you.
Sir? You repeat your question?
Repeat my question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, now my question is, can you hear me?
Gotcha. Yeah.
With the state, I don't want to use the word dump, but that's what they're doing. So many mental ill people into the jail, just like they're going to dump a lot of immigrants into the jail. But the question with the mentally ill, they closed down so many mental institutions. So what is your strategy or your idea or your thoughts about trying to reverse this so the jail can house criminals and the mentally ill people can get the proper help that they need?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. Sheriff Brown?
Thank you for that question. I had an opportunity to go down to Austin and testify before a House committee concerning this very topic and the need for more local beds, not just beds throughout the state of Texas, but local beds here in this area, because we are housing individuals who have mental illness, and we should not be the keepers of those who have mental illness. We should be concerned with those that the statutes say we should be concerned about, and that is those who are charged with criminal offenses. So I testified before a House committee, and last summer, early spring it was, there was the UT Southwestern Center that was, ground was broken on that facility so that we could have I think it's close to 200 beds that we're going to have that will be here locally. And so we'll continue to advocate for the individuals who are in our custody who have mental health issues. Of course, we have a great partnership with Parkland Hospital, and so the individuals who are charged to our care have the benefit of licensed mental health care professionals attending to them on a daily basis, and so we'll continue to advocate on their behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. Officer Thomas?
Mental health is a huge crisis, especially in our jails. One of the things I would pose to actually use our community programs that address mental health, because as we all said, that the sole purpose is not to have the sheriff's department take care of our mental health individuals, but to get them to a point where they can be productive citizens within Dallas County. So I would definitely use our community programs to help us to make that transition from being an inmate, detainee within our county jail, to actually being productive citizens in the Dallas County. But that takes some time. That takes a partnership where we have so many different partnerships outside of Parkland, different programs that can address our mental health individuals to get them a better purpose, I guess, in our society. But I definitely will be looking into different programs that we can address mental health individuals that are transitioning from our county jail to being in society.
Thank you. Dr.
When I first took over in 2005, the mental health were basically gathered. They weren't taken care of, they were gathered. There is a fascination with the mentally ill on their body functions. And so it was embarrassing in the jail because they would slap their body functions all over the place. So I went to Parkland, I went to NAMI, and I went to several nonprofit organizations and several mental health organizations. And I said, what are we gonna do? Let's come together. Parkland is fantastic, by the way, in this, what has been fantastic in there. And we started the mental health unit at the Sheriff's Department. We also had to have people that were trained in mental health in being the officers that would work in that unit. Any officer who did not have the mental health training could not work in that unit. We want to not only continue that, as you've heard, we have a new mental health hospital coming in, and it's going to take several years for it to happen. But one of the things that I've already started doing is talking to the organizations that currently house some mentally ill and currently work with the mentally ill. And I basically said to them, you need to come in and we need to work together. And they said, let us know when and we'll start working on it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Officer Thomas, this is your question.
Okay.
How will you address concerns about the militarization of law enforcement?
That's a good one. Militarization. As far as, give me a bit of one example.
Within Dallas County Sheriff's Department. Militarization.
Militarization.
Oh, yes, okay.
Well, first of all, we'll take a more proactive approach, progressive community policing within the Dallas County Sheriff's Department, which include our de-escalation skills that our deputies will be trained for. We also, when we talk about community policing, where I talked about bridging the gap, working with our community leaders within the community to talk about what concerns we have. What are their concerns as far as how they feel about the Dallas County Sheriff or just law enforcement in a whole. So we can actually get a conversation, a dialogue started where we can take that narrative of militarization away and start building a more positive law enforcement agency where people are not afraid to come talk to the Sheriff's Department. People will actually want to work with us because they can trust us. Right now, there's no trust. We know that, and we can go all the way back to George Floyd and his unfortunate death. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to become the sheriff, because I feel that moving into a more positive role, creating a blueprint that other law enforcement agencies can use to restructure their department could come from the Dallas County Sheriff's Department. So definitely bridging the gap and working with our community leaders is one of the things that we can take away as far as taking away that militarization theory from the Sheriff's Department. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure about this.
I thank God for my disadvantages. I was a veteran. I am a veteran. I was in the military during the Vietnam War. And so at that time, women were not looked upon very nicely in the military. I was also a federal agent when there was one woman among 5,000 male agents. So I thank God for the disadvantages that taught me how it feels to be in that situation and how to try and do something about it. When several of the officers, when I took over, it was the good old boy system. Now I think we call them Trumpers. But at that time, it was pre-Trump, so we used to call them the good old boys. And they would constantly try to come up with some issues. And as a matter of fact, I started a little slogan, boys and their toys. They want a tank. They want this. They want that. And I basically would say, it's boys and their toys. We cannot do good service to the people when we continually act in that behavior. And I used to say, if you want to be militant, if you want to be like the military, you know, they still take reserves. I was in the reserves for several years. So they still take them. You can do that. But this department is about fairness to the community, to serve and protect, not to serve and discriminate. So we continue to bring that thing up, that we are here to serve and protect, not to put in a badge to discriminate or to act like we're taking over.
Thank you. Sheriff Brown?
Would you read the question for me, please?
I know it has to do with militarization, but I want to hear what your question
How
was.
will you address concerns about the militarization of law enforcement, particularly Dallas Sheriff's Department?
Okay. I think it's important that you engage the community and you get to know the community and the community gets to know you. And those engagements can't always be enforcement action. They have to be those times when you're playing basketball with the kids. They have to be those times when you're at the rec center with the kids. They have to be an environment where people get to be comfortable with one another. And then what happens is now the community sees the police as human and the police sees the community as human. And then you have more of a guardian role in terms of taking care of the community more so than being militant in terms of enforcing laws. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Sheriff Valdez, question's yours.
I'm sorry.
This question's yours.
Okay.
Oftentimes, as you know, individual who is in law enforcement, you don't see people always on their good days and have to deal with that. And it is often a stressful job. We thank you for it. I want to know from you, we talk about taking care of the community. How do we take care of the officers? Meaning, how do we deal with the mental? Because oftentimes officers and the firemen have the highest rate of divorce. So how do we take care of those individuals mentally?
We have to allow them to be able to talk to us. We have to allow them to be able to show some of their weaknesses. And so I made it a point to talk to every correctional officer class, every deputy class, and every civilian class. And I also started a procedure where any officer that was involved in any kind of shooting or death situation was given 3 sessions of counseling. An officer will more than likely not admit that they have problems because the stereotype has been, if you got problems, you don't need to be here. And some of that is true. But we have to get the problems, that we have to get to the issue before it becomes a problem. If you only allow them to come as a problem, it's almost too late. So I would say to them, if you've been involved in a shooting, if you've been involved in seeing a death, by the way, in the highway accidents, they see a lot of deaths. Then you have to go to a counselor for 3 sessions. And that takes care of the, oh, I'm okay, I don't need this, I'm tough, I can handle this. No, you're not. You're down to earth, you have kids. And that way they had the excuse of, well, she made me go, I have to go. And I would always say, you go 3 sessions, and then it's up to you what happens after that. If you want to continue, we will take care of it. It will be private. You can continue doing that. And we need to listen about their families too. You know, they have problems with their families and stuff like that. It comes into the department. We not only need to take care of the inmate, we need to take care of the officer.
Thank you. Sheriff Brown.
This is a very good question. As someone who worked through COVID and saw the toll that it took on our people, I understand that it is extremely important for us to have an avenue for our people. And I'm proud to say that for about a year now, we implemented what we call a behavioral health unit that is geared strictly toward employees. In addition to implementing that unit, we went to the commissioners. We were able to hire on a full-time psychologist who is housed at a location where if an officer, an employee, a deputy, corrections officer, and in fact she's even been instrumental in helping the county, period, when there was a shooting at another county facility some time ago. She was instrumental in helping those employees as well. So we have implemented that. We've recognized the need for such a service, and we have already implemented that, and it's about a year old now. But I think it's important for us to continue to have those instances where it is mandatory for them to go and see someone. But with the in-house psychologist, there's no requirement for them to go, and there's also no requirement for the psychologist to report to us what they glean from that visit. There's no requirement for them to share with us what it is that they talk with the psychologist about. This is about their health and their well-being, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, then we certainly can't take care of anybody else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Once again, like I said, I do a lot of research. I'm looking at other departments and seeing how their initiatives can also help the Dallas County Sheriff. Miami-Dade Police Department has a psychological services unit, which is 24 hours a day, because there's no given time when an officer needs to talk to somebody. He may need to talk to someone 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because he or she is going through something. So that psychologist or that therapist is there, rather it be Zoom, rather it be by a phone call. But that psychologist is there for them at any given time, 24/7. Because like I said, we see so many things throughout our day. We have to go home, we have to deal with family and everything else. I need some time to just go outside in the backyard and just talk to someone. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. But at least have that availability for these officers to talk to someone at any given time. Because you never know what goes on in their life, and this is the time I need to talk to someone, because things are starting to get pressured in me and myself, and I need that release. So myself, one of my initiatives is to bring a psychological unit that actually deals with our employees at any given time, because they see so much throughout the day and throughout the nights. It just gets hard. I've been there. I did 24 years in law enforcement as a federal officer in Miami. I did gangs and narcotics. I did undercover. It gets stressful. But that's just one of my initiatives that I would like to bring to the Sheriff's Department, is a 24-hour psychological unit that deals with our sheriff employees, whether it be detention, whether it be law enforcement.
With the growth of the adjacent counties to Dallas and the use of officers and student resource officers, is there a plan? Well, first of all, is Dallas fully staffed? And is there a plan to retain and recruit new officers?
Sheriff Brown.
Unfortunately, we are not fully staffed at this time, and it's really kind of awkward because during the height of COVID, we had 0 openings. I don't understand what was taking place then, but at this point, we are not fully staffed, but this is why we continue to work with our commissioners to try to get a recruiting budget so that we can think outside of the box in terms of recruiting. What we have done is gone to DISD, Dallas ISD, and we have implemented a law enforcement track at Roosevelt High School, which is where I graduated from. And so we are trying to pique the curiosity of those young folk and try to get them interested in law enforcement at a young age. In fact, we have 4 individuals who recently passed their state exam to be dispatchers. So that means that when they graduate this year, that they will already be offered a job. So there was a second part of the question. Was there? What are we doing to recruit and maintain? Oh, that's what we're doing, is we're going to the various fairs, but we're thinking outside of the box in terms of starting the law enforcement track at the high school, and we hope to expand that. We have eased over into Garland a little bit, and we're talking with their students as well, because some of our employees who graduated from that particular school wanted to visit with the young people, and so we are seeing some interest there as well. But we're just having to stay on the commissioners and asking them about a recruiting budget. We need a budget where we are focused on recruiting. Right now, what we do is we actually take people and detach them and make them recruiters.
And maintain.
And to maintain them, we continue to offer those benefits that are available through Dallas County, and we try to put a little extra on there in terms of Appreciation Week for our people as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
Recruitment is always a big problem for our law enforcement agencies all across the country. But there is money out there. There are grants that are associated with recruitment that the Dallas County Sheriffs can use. And I feel once addressed to the County Commissioners Board, I wouldn't see them having a problem with signing off on a grant that would allow the Dallas County Sheriffs to go outside of Dallas, outside of Texas, to actually start bringing in more individuals to Dallas, Texas. One caveat: New York, where I'm from, one of the biggest advertising sales that we could use. You guys pay 3 times in taxes, federal, state, and local taxes. Out here, you're not going to pay. You pay 1 federal, which is a huge benefit with a salary that is comparable for them to live with out here. So there are other avenues and other financial resources that won't play the Dallas County residents, where we can actually use grants associated with recruitment to bring the best of the best to the Dallas County Sheriffs.
Thank you. Down
At one point, the county administrator, I went and asked for positions. And the county administrator said to me, if I give you the positions, you can't recruit them. I said, give me the positions in C. He gave me 5. Recruited those, I went back, I said, double that, give me 10. Says, you can't get them, give me the positions, we got them. This went on and on and on, and we were at full capacity. But what do we need to do now? We're all going after the same pool. You know, Frisco, Garland, all of us, we're all going after the same pool. So we have to do different things. We have to be at Kwanzaa, we have to be at Cinco de Mayo, we have to be at the Asian festival, we have to be at the Muslim Ramadan, we have to be at all these functions and take something with us that we can take them right there. And we have to allow them to have pride in their work. If they have pride in what they do, if they have pride in how they come in and out, they won't leave as easily as others will. And you have to acknowledge the employees. We used to have award programs quarterly. Thank you for your service. Thank you for 5 years. Thank you for 10 years. Thank you for not being absent for a whole 2 months. Thank you for not having a wreck on the highway. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And the officers will listen to you. If they feel comfortable with you there, with you and how you treat them and how you thank them and how you try to give them things that they need, and you tell them what you're doing, they'll stay.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? If you're watching online, please submit your questions. We will have those questions answered. So again, if you're watching online, please submit your questions.
My question is, all over the country, we have had a problem with law enforcement unions, especially the union boss, so to say, overshadowing the police chief and the sheriffs in most of our major cities when they seem to can get the officers in line with them. Do you have a strategy or solution to keep loyalty and let your officers know that the community trusts them and not the unions? Thank you.
Police unions.
Yes. All right, this question goes to first Mr. Officer Thomas.
First of all, with our deputies, our sheriff's deputies, everything is about loyalty, and it starts at the top. So if we're extending ourselves as far as being leaders in senior management level, where that trickles down into our first line supervision and our boots on the ground, letting the deputies know we got your back, we're here for you. Accountability, transparency is everything. So I don't see where I would have a problem if the deputies know senior management is going to take care of them when needs be. When accountability and transparency is key in honor, I'm not going to have a problem with the unions. But everything is a conversation. Everything starts with dialogue. So I still have to talk to the union. We still have to get them in play. But we also let our people know, we're here for you. We're not going to let you go. And we're going to take, when we need, we'll take care of you. And then unfortunately, if you get into a situation that you got yourself into a situation, we still have to deal with that, obviously. But accountability and transparency is everything. It starts at the top of leadership. And that's how I feel I would maintain loyalty with the deputies and also the detention officers.
Thank you. Sheriff Valdez.
On one occasion when I fired an officer, of course he was part of the union. So the union defended the officer in his appeal. But the neat thing was that the union representative was a sergeant. And I said, okay, if he is such a good person, I'm going to put him under you. And he immediately goes, no, don't put him under me. He knew he was a bad officer. And we were trying to get rid of the bad officer. And his comment to me was, he pays his dues. We have to take care of it. And I said, I pay my dues to the community, and I have to take care of them. Many times, the unions went against me. Many times. But we also had a chief that all he did was listen to us. I mean, that's not all he did, but one of his assignments was to listen to the complaints of the union so that they felt they were heard by our office. And if it was legitimate, in several cases it was, then let's work together and take care of it. At another time, when we had certain issues, I said, we're never going to solve this unless we work together. And I'm not going to go against the community. So let's find out what we need to do and make it happen. And we continued that, and I will still continue that, working with the unions, but listening to the people.
Thank you. Chair Brown.
I'm going to first of all say that, and I do understand that this is a matter of semantics, but in Texas, police unions are not legal. That's why we call them associations. But again, semantics, I get that. We have associations, and sometimes they can be for the good and sometimes not so much. However, it is important for us as the leaders to work with those associations, to visit with them, and we do visit with them quarterly, but we make sure that they understand that the leadership belongs to the leadership of the department and not to the associations. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Valdez, this question is yours. The role of the Sheriff's Office extends beyond law enforcement to include responsibilities such as serving civil process and managing the county jail. What is your strategy and plan to efficiently handle these additional duties while maintaining focus on public safety?
Public safety, of course, is number one, including in the jail. Public safety is just as important in the jail. My plan, I am not afraid to have people under me that are smarter than me. I am not afraid to bring people together that have good solutions. One person cannot have all the solutions. And so I'm not scared to bring in people from the inside and the outside and say, here's the challenge. Many a time in the past, let me give you an example, probation violators. We had overcrowded galore, and we came up with all of the people who were in for certain things. It turned out probation violators were the number 1 that year that were in the jail. So we had to get the probation, probation and parole. We had to get the attorneys, we had to get the judge, we had to get the bailiff, we had to bring them all together and say, how do we solve this? And one of the things they said was, you gotta have a court in the jail. Okay, let's put a court in the jail. We found a spot that we put a court, and so weekly, the probation violators came through and a decision was made. You're either going to jail, going to state jail, or you're going out. Why couldn't we have done that before? Because nobody was paying attention to what's going on. I want to make sure that I pay attention to the issues and then bring the people in that will help me solve those issues and not be afraid to roll up my sleeves and get in there and work with them.
Thank you. Next, Sheriff Brown.
Well, as has been stated, I think it's important for you to bring in people to focus on specific areas. This is why you have the command staff, because people who manage those positions are the people who need to be working closely with those people in those various areas. So again, as has been said, you don't have to be the smartest person. What you have to do is be smart enough to bring in some people to work in those various areas and delegate that responsibility so that you can cover those various areas. I always tell my people that what we do is we turn a wheel every day. And I tell them that we are like a bicycle wheel, and we all are spokes in the wheel. And that means that everybody's got the same objective, and that is for us to turn the wheel. But it's not just the objective of turning the wheel. The idea is that everybody has to turn the wheel in the same direction and at the same time in order for us to be effective. So again, you bring in the people and you assign those people to specific responsibilities, and then you step back and let them do the work that you have hired them to do. And so that's how you manage that. Thank you.
I have one analysis that I would implement as far as being elected. First 60, 90 days, we would do what we call as a SWOT analysis, where we study the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats of the department before we make any critical changes to the department. So therefore, we study, we look at detention, we'll look at law enforcement side, we'll look at the areas that need strengthening, and then we start creating analysis that would actually deal with that situation. So therefore, I wouldn't make any critical changes until myself and my team get together and we do the 60 to 90-day analysis of the department to make sure that we're going in the right direction so the department can thrive and move forward in a positive way. And also, dialogue is everything for me. Now also being able to talk to the courts, being able to talk to parole and probation, to start moving, once we create our analysis, to start moving individuals that need to be moved out of Dallas County Jail to bring down the jail population. Thank you.
All right, this is our final question. And this question came from online. The question was, if elected or re-elected, what is it that you think you can do better within your next term?
Better than what I've done in this term is what you're saying?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think that what I'd like to do better is I'd like to focus more on inmate programs. When COVID came, a lot of the programs were discontinued for obvious reasons, and so a lot of those programs have not been resumed. I think it's important for people to have an avenue while they are incarcerated, and so I would like to focus on bringing those programs and even bringing in new programs that we're implementing right now, such as a Fighting Chance and the Regional Black Contractors Association, those types of programs. I'd like to focus a little bit closer on those things.
Thank you. Officer Thomas.
Once elected, bringing a new Dallas County Sheriff, restructuring the department where other law enforcement agencies, like I said before, can see what Dallas County Sheriff is doing and use that as a blueprint to move forward with their department. Creating a positive narrative for our community is extremely important to me. Mentoring our youth, bringing more programs that involve the mentoring of youth. Being able to go into South Dallas and have conversations with the community is huge for me. Last year I sat down with the Bloods, the older members of the Bloods, just to talk about the gun violence, which is something I would do on a regular. Because yeah, they are part of the violence, yes, but they're also part of the community. But if we don't start talking to them, where are we going? So once in office, I definitely want to create a dialogue where community policing is number one, and also our officers are looked at the highest level, and we create the highest standards for our deputy sheriffs and for our detention officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Adler.
Jail is for people you're afraid of, not for people that you're angry at. 70% of the budget of the Sheriff's Department is the jail. 70% of the personnel, 70% of the issues, 70% of the budget, everything is the jail. So of course, we're going to turn our attention toward the jail. That doesn't mean we're ignoring the others. That just means there's going to be more attention over here. As I mentioned before, we started the wellness, the mental health program, the hospital, the programs for the inmates. And one of the things that I loved was teaching them life skills. We had programs on anger management. We had programs on fatherhood. We had programs on dealing with your family. We had programs for women on getting away from letting the man do 70%. We also found out, the number 70 seems to come up. We also found out that 70% of the women followed men into jail. So we started doing self-assurance classes, confidence classes, and then after we did that, we did life skill classes. I plan to bring those back and even more. Creativity is how you continue building on what you have. And we need the creativity and thinking outside the box to try and bring more programs and to try and bring more officers and to try and build up our deputies. Educate to elevate has always been true of students. It's also true for departments. We need to continue to educate in our departments.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to that part of our program where we'll give our 2-minute closing remarks, and we'll begin with Officer Thomas.
Thank you again for allowing me to be here tonight. Once again, I'm Rodney Thomas. I'm running for the Dallas County Sheriff. I bring accountability, transparency, integrity, and honor to the Dallas County Sheriff's Department. I am coming in with a strong leadership background, and I'm coming in with the intentions of changing this Dallas County Sheriff's. Restructuring them within the jails, restructuring in the field. I feel that being part of a department as the Dallas County Sheriff is important because it's not just me, it's everybody that's involved with the Dallas County Sheriff, from your detention officer to the person that cleans up the jail, from everybody that's on the road that are assisting in car stops, that are assisting in traffic fatalities. Everybody's important. And I'm the one person, and I'm the only person that is progressively trying to get my words together because it's the end of the night. I feel I'm the only progressive candidate here that can make those changes happen. My name is Rodney Thomas. I bring strong leadership, accountability, and transparency to the Dallas County Sheriff with honor and integrity. Thank you so much. You guys have a great evening. Thank y'all for coming out.
Thank you. Sheriff Valdez.
First of all, thank you so much for putting this on and for being here. I have over 40 years of law enforcement experience. I was a veteran. I am a veteran, excuse me, and I was in the military for 11 years. And I also have served in local, county, state, national, and international law enforcement. I have international experience. Experience is knowledge, and knowledge put to the right task is wisdom and performance. It makes a difference who's at the top. Experience matters, success matters, how you treat your employees matters, how you deal with the outside community matters, how you treat nonprofits matters, how you treat other organizations matters, and what matters the most is who sets the tone. The tone is from the top. So most of all, what matters is who's leading the organization. My name is Lupe Valdez. I'm asking you to consider me for your vote, and I will perform as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Brown.
My name is Marion Brown, and I'm asking you to allow me to continue to serve you as Dallas County Sheriff. When I took over the office of Dallas County Sheriff, there were many things that were behind, out of compliance, and I'm proud to say that we have been bringing the department up to date. We are compliant not only in terms of our jail inspection, but there's another side of the house, that side of the house that is the sworn side that was out of compliance with the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. We are now in compliance with them. We are in compliance with the National Commission on Correctional Health Care. We have received accreditation from them. We are also in compliance in terms of being CJIS compliant. We've updated our radio system, which is a system that was mandated by the federal government to be updated in 2010. And it was a result of 9/11 when the FBI said, well, this happened because we didn't know what we knew. And that meant that this system wasn't talking to this system, or this agency rather wasn't talking to this agency, wasn't talking to that one. And so the federal government said, okay, by 2010, every law enforcement agency in this country needs to have what's called a P25 compliance system and be able to talk to other agencies. And we now have that system. We are bringing in some programs into our jails. We are proud of the fact that we, for the first time in history, have voting on election day in our jail. That's something that we have worked toward, something that was requested, something that we have now implemented. So we are proud of that. We are proud of the things that we have done to bring the department forward. And again, this is not the time to go backwards. Neither is it the time to turn over to a novice. My name is Marion Brown. I am your Dallas County Sheriff, and I'm asking you to allow me to continue to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have been informed tonight. I want to thank you for your participation. Give a round of applause for our candidates. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now that you've been informed, do something with it. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends. Don't hide this knowledge. And for those that are watching online, we appreciate you. Thank you. We'll see you back here next Monday night. Thank you.